First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Grace Cheung-Schulman, a co-founder and currently vice president of AAPIC, which is Asian American Pacific Islander Coalition of North Bay. And we initiated this project, and we are happy that we have lots of people helping us, which I will go to in a minute. And first of all, housekeeping, restrooms, gentlemen are right out there, and ladies, you have to walk all across the hall to the other side. And refreshments at the back, feel free to get up and get something to drink when it is getting a little hot, but I understand we are adjusting the temperature right now. And also, I mentioned we have the support of several organizations to help us put this on. First of all is the Petaluma Downtown Association coordinator who helped to coordinate as well as invite you to come to this meeting. And she's represented by Marie McCusker here. I think most of you probably know her. The second is the city of Petaluma. They very generously provided us with the venue and the facility for this event, and the sound system and the projector and so on. And thirdly is the Petaluma Community Access, they call PCA. Now I know that acronym. For filming today, this is because we feel that the information is so important that if people cannot come, they should have access to this. And at this point, I want to mention that all the things that you are going to see and also the information on the wall, feel free to take a look at that, but you will get a email about within a week afterwards if you have registered and we have your email address, so that you don't have to take out your phone and then snap a screenshot, okay? And of course, I need to thank the speakers for being here, because they are really the provider of information. And first of all, we have Kirk Locke. Actually, Kirk Locke is a life member of AAPIC, and he has been very active in this we call immigration task force that is looking into issues that we need to look into. Kirk is right here, and I think many of you know him. He comes from an immigrant family business rooted in Sonoma County since 1970, even before I was here, when they brought their first motel in Santa Rosa in 1970. Kirk and his brother Alec went on to build and open the Quality Inn Petaluma in 1985, and the Holiday Inn Express Sebastopol, 1998, now a Fairfield by Marriott. Their family continues to operate both hotels, proudly serving the local community. He's deeply involved in local and national hospitality efforts. Kirk serves on the board of Sonoma County Tourism, Sonoma County Hospitality Association, and the National Circle Hotels Owners Association. As a founding member of the Petaluma Lodging Association, he helped establish the Petaluma Tourism Improvement District, promoting sustainable economic development. Please welcome Kirk.
Thank you, Grace. And I'm going to also give thanks to Grace, because she's the one that has worked really hard to pull this all together. Without her efforts, we would not be here today. The important thing today is for you folks. I want to thank all of you, because you folks represent the business leaders. You own your business or you operate your business, and that's the reason you're here. Because the message is, without your leadership, we will not be able to get an effective message out to our employees to feel that they can come to work in a safe environment. Our goal today is to make sure that you have the tools to feel confident to be able to convey the proper message. If there's an ICE incident, you know what to do, okay? So we're gonna go through hopefully an hour 45 minutes of presentation. After each speaker, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions. At the end, we'll have some more Q&A, okay? This is, again, an opportunity for us to create a dialogue that you can take back to your businesses and implement things that will make your employees feel safe, okay? My part of the presentation today really focuses on the paperwork, making sure that you're in compliance. Because if you're not in compliance, then you're setting yourself up, for perhaps some hefty fines, perhaps, invitation for ICE to actually be more proactive in going after your business. So how do you prevent that? First thing you do is make sure your I-9 forms are up to date, okay? If they're not up to date and ICE shows up and your forms are in disarray, here's the fines, okay? They're expensive. So these I-9 forms require constant updating. So the next major period is 2026. And you have to make sure that your forms are up to date. If you don't have, if you haven't had those up to date, talk to your HR person, maybe talk to your legal counsel, how to make sure that they are up to date. If it requires some revision, there's a form that, that you should use to revise it. And I was told that don't throw away the old forms, staple them all together. Keep all your I-forms historically there so it shows that you're making progress in updating those forms. If you don't, then you're kind of opening up yourself. So what happens if the federal government decides they want to audit your forms? They will normally send you a letter saying that they're going to show up, and so have everything ready, okay? They're not just going to show up and say, I want to see your I-9 forms. So that'll give you a period of time to be able to update that. But believe me, you don't want to wait till the last minute. My HR person, Serena, she's here in the back, and so if you want to talk to her about that, it took us more than 30 days, and we only have less than 50 employees at 25 at each hotel, and it took 30 days for us to really get that up to date, because a lot of people just don't trust the environment in which we're asking for these kinds of things. So you have to build up trust. You got to give people the confidence that this is in their best interest, and to make sure that the information they give you is accurate. If it's not, you need to make sure it gets corrected. Again, I talked about making sure that you talk to your legal counsel, talk to your accountant, talk to your HR department, make sure they're on top of everything so that the information that you provide is current. These are some of the records that ICE might be asking for when they do an audit. Once they do an audit, they will send you a notice, okay? They'll give you a chance to be able to correct things. If there's a potential fine, make sure your legal department or your attorney is there to help you negotiate, maybe some of the fines down. But there's a dialogue. This is entirely different than ICE coming up with a warrant and saying that they want to arrest someone. Okay, this is a precursor to some of this, but having this done ahead of time will probably help to mitigate any serious issues that might come. Most of this presentation was done by Fisher Phillips. Fisher Phillips is a national legal firm that does a lot of HR work in the hospitality industry. So most of it sounds like something that an attorney firm might do, but a lot of the things that we're asking you folks to implement go kind of beyond that. So this is just the beginning of what homework is before you. Okay, thank you.
And the next speaker I would like to introduce is Jose Ibarra. Jose was born in Mexico, became a U.S. citizen in 1980s, a former seminarian. He earned a degree in clinical psychology with minors in theology and philosophy from Our Lady of the Lake University. Jose spent over 40 years as an international flight attendant, engaging in labor negotiations and cultural outreach, supported by his fluency in Spanish, English, and some French, and even Japanese. And now talking about his being a flight attendant, I remember that I forgot to mention, here are the exits. Should there be any exit, you have to jump off the plane. Deeply committed to human activism, his English and Spanish Know Your Rights presentations reflect his lifelong passion for justice and empowering others through knowledge and action. Jose.
Thank you very much. Thank you so very much, and thank you to all of you for being here present. And hopefully, let me get this microphone in the right place so I don't have it here with me. There you go. At the request of Kirk, I actually printed a single page. I actually called it All Hands on Deck. It was in every one of your seats. It is primarily, I created it for the purpose of guiding the employers into what exactly they should be doing, what exactly kind of commitment they should make to other organizations that are more than willing to help us. For example, Vidas, who is here to help us also, the police department and other agencies are out there, very nonprofit, many of them, that are here to help. And as a matter of fact, they recently were awarded by the Sonoma County a total of $500,000 to continue their fight in education, in information. So it is a great resource for all of you to tap into if you are not familiar with any of them. Both Grace and I'm sure Kirk is aware of these organizations, and my recommendation is learn who they are, try to tap into their knowledge. They have a lot of it, and I think they can help a lot. So this is primarily a guide that I wanted to point out to you, and I hope that you find it helpful. And number two, it is not set in stone. It is primarily a fluid document that allows you to plan it according to your kind of business. For example, Kirk owns hotels. He can do in that, the hotel business. Other of you may own a store. For example, I recently did a presentation at the employer that has the French bakery in Healdsburg, and they have a very large place, and I was able to talk to all of their employees as to what needed to be done and what they should be doing. My presentation is primarily Know Your Rights, and since November, I have been doing these presentations, and very, very luckily, we have done many presentations, and the nice thing about it is we have been able to reach thousands upon thousands of undocumented individuals prior to January 20th. The other way that we did it is the beautiful organization of KBBF 89.1 FM radio station. They matched with us so that we had created Know Your Rights presentations, which actually went out to over 4 million people in the North Bay area. So they played these presentations 3 times a day and 3 times during the night, so that people could listen to the rights that you two are going to listen to in a few moments. So, oh, thank you. You're very kind. Please know that this presentation is about the U.S. constitutional rights, and these rights protect everyone living in the United States. One very important element that I tell undocumented individuals, and of course now yourselves, is that just by the fact that our body is in the United States, we are under the U.S. constitutional rights. If you lived in China, if you live in Canada, if you live in France, obviously you're under their rights. But in the United States, we are all documented or undocumented under the constitutional rights of the United States of America. As you know, our rights are under attack. All we have to do is turn the television on. We can look at San Diego, we can look at Los Angeles, we can look at Chicago, et cetera, et cetera. So all of our rights, not just undocumented, and I'm not an undocumented, but not just undocumented, but documented individuals also are being under attack. So important, this information does not constitute legal advice. I am not an attorney, I'm only a volunteer. Best practices. So did I turn it off? There you go. We request you support and implement the following measures to safeguard your business employees and all others. Post clear signage. Install clearly visible private property signs at all property entry points. Prepare staff for official visits. Train all staff on proper protocols for responding when ICE arrives on site. Develop emergency procedures. Create and implement comprehensive all hands on deck emergency response procedures. Your leadership in implementing these measures will help create a safe and secure environment that protects both your business and our communities. The legal requirements: ICE must have a judicial warrant signed by a judge to enter non-public areas. Reminder, administrative warrants, subpoenas do not grant entry rights. And as we indicated in the document that I left you there, and as Kirk has also mentioned, and our legal person from Vidas, literally ask your legal advisors. You guys have a business, you have a very strong interest that you should know this information, so getting the correct information from them as to what is public, what is private, is that they are the ones that are going to give you that information. Request legal advice and embrace supporting community businesses. Consult an immigration attorney to review policies. Keep an attorney's contact information easily accessible. Join businesses associations offering resources on immigration enforcement. Identify and engage local communities that support your effort. There are a lot of them, especially here in Sonoma. It is amazing how many people are out there to help you. I want to bring up a very important point that even I, as a citizen of the United States, has actually done in the event that I get detained. The issue why many of our people are getting detained is not because they know who you are, is basically this brown face is telling them, get them. And so in order to protect myself, and I don't know if you guys know this, but there is a passport ID card that is now present in your passport in our passport world. So I carry this in my automobile glove compartment. Literally, I have it there in the event that this face brings about an ICE official to stop me and ask me who I am. So literally, this is a change of character that I've done that in turn, I carry this with me. The other thing that I did, so that I can bring it up to the immediate deportation and deferred deportation, is I currently went to Japan for a very long trip, really enjoyed it, had a lot of fun. But the important thing is, and you might have heard this already, but one of the things that I did personally is when I came back into the United States, I deleted prior to arrival all of my social media posts, all of my apps that had Facebook, Twitter, whatever kind of thing where I actually post things that are against the administration. And in turn, I deleted it. This is things that are happening and that you are hearing up-to-date information out there in the public. So with that said, there are two kinds of deportations. There is the one that is called immediate deportation and deferred deportation. And immediate deportation happens to anyone who has been here less than 2 years. If you have been here longer than 2 years, then you fall into deferred deportation. I'm sure our attorney from Vidas will mention that a little bit more about that. But it's very important that, as you see in the news, you see a lot of people that are being detained and taken back immediately. That's because they have not been here more than 2 years. the advice from both legal advice and all kinds of advice out there is saying that if you have been here for more than 2 years, you need to carry documents either in your car or somewhere in your purse that actually proves that you have been here more than 2 years, so you're not deported immediately. In order to protect from expedited removal, be prepared to prove you have been in the country continuously for 2+ years. Example, payroll records, utility bills, rent receipts, and medical records. Carry copies of these documents, as I mentioned. If working with an immigration agency, contact your attorney or representative immediately. And of course, you need to understand that when I first started doing these presentations, I was presenting to nothing but undocumented immigrants. Now I'm presenting it to people that are here with documents, and this is the kind of information that they need since you employ many of them. This is the kind of basic information they should have with them. Extremely important, a lot of confusion. People don't know if they're dealing with ICE or with the police. We are lucky enough today, we're going to have Officer Zach back here with us today to give us a presentation, and you will see what a policeman looks like versus an ICE agent. But the ICE agents obviously have embroidered in their uniforms the words ICE or Homeland Security, versus the police only has police. Now, a very important element that we are all looking at the news today, they are now masked. They do not have any insignia. They are surprising individuals. They're coming in the middle of the night without any documentation, any information. So a lot of junk is happening, and that's another element that has to be part of this to be able to understand that that is really going on. As has been mentioned by Kirk and also by Vida's legal counsel, there are two kinds of valid warrants. There's a judicial search and seizure warrant for entry, and there is an arrest warrant. When Grace places all of these documents on the internet, I recommend that you actually study them because it is important that you know the difference. If somebody's coming over to collect an employee that is undocumented, these kind of items must have a judge's signature and the legal name of the person. For example, my name is Jose Arturo Ibarra. And if this form, especially the one that is trying to collect me personally, it says Jose Ibarra, that's not me. It must have Jose Arturo Ibarra. Otherwise, it is not valid. There is, you were given the red cards. These red cards that were given to you at the front entrance, if you don't have them, I recommend that you please get them. They're both in English and Spanish, and also, of course, Rapid Response and other organizations are putting them in Japanese and Chinese, in all kinds of languages. There are links on the internet for them. And it's important that one carries them because this gives in very detail exactly what your constitutional rights are. With that said, I want to be able to now let you know what are our constitutional rights. The first one is you have the right to remain silent, which is, I always like to remember this one because when I was speaking to mostly undocumented individuals, I'm speaking to people from Mexico. And I say, as you and I know, Mexicans, we love to talk. And it's like, don't. When you encounter this, you are silent. Talking is not the answer. You do not have to discuss your immigration or citizenship status with anybody. You do not have to do that. You have the right to refuse to sign any documents. You have the right to refuse to consent to a search of yourself, your car, or your home. You have the legal right to not let immigration, ICE, police, or other government agents into your home. If you are not under arrest, you have the right to calmly leave. You have the right to a lawyer if you are arrested. This is the one that we're talking about, not letting them into your home. It is one of the things that is frustrating the local administration incredibly bad. because people in Chicago and all over the United States are simply not opening their doors, and therefore they can't enter. So a lot of people have been able to exercise that part of your Constitution. If in the event an employee or someone undocumented is stopped for questioning, this is when they use the red card, because all of those items in the Constitution are clearly listed here, and the immigration, even the police also now know what this red card is, and you might have heard of it in the news yourself. So if stopped, use the red card, and or I wish to remain silent, tell the officer out loud, I wish to remain silent. That is your legal right. Ask if you are free to go. Am I free to go? If the officer says yes, calmly and silently walk away. If arrested, you have a right to know why. If you do not have to consent to a search warrant of yourself or your belongings, and you can state, I do not consent to this search. Most likely, you as documented individuals probably didn't know some of these. And just knowing them for yourself, in the event that in today's environment you get caught, you have those rights. As indicated, use the red card, slide it under the door or hold it up to the window. You have the legal right to not let them in. Do not open the door to immigration authorities or the police unless they have a valid search warrant. If you open your door, you automatically are given immigration, ICE, or the police permission to enter. And when I say by that, it's literally if you just open the door, turn the knob, they can come in. You have now let them into your home. So you do not open the door. Give me a second. You communicate with them via the window or under the door. Those are the two areas that the best way to do it, other than the fact that if you open the door, now you've let them in. That's what is important to know, that those warrants have a signature from a judge, because now the immigration is actually signing some of the documents themselves, and it does not say a judge. So there's a lot of hanky-panky going on in that regards. Please watch out. If stopped in your car, first of course, identify it as the police or the immigration. Stop the car in a safe place quickly. Place your hands on the wheel. If the police requested, show your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance. If it is the immigration, ICE, present the red card. If a police or immigration agent asks to look inside your car, you can refuse to consent to the search. State, I don't consent to this search. If police believes your car contains evidence of a crime, your car can be searched without your consent or warrant. The example that I give here is especially as you're driving. Think of this: a policeman or an ICE officer stops you, and the next thing you know, you lower the window, and a cloud of marijuana smoke comes out. Now, that's a different situation. You are now breaking the law. Or the officer is actually looking through the window, and the passenger's seat has a very large gun. Now you are obviously breaking the law. So do not ask employees or other people that you know. Don't get yourselves in those kinds of situations. It's very important to know that if somebody is a resident of the United States, it is important that they carry their residency card. If they don't, they may face charges. So it's important that if they're older than 18 years old, they must carry this card with them at all times. Try not to carry identification that is not from another country. Additionally, we like to use the Costco card for a reason. The Costco card has when you became a member of the Costco, which then proves that maybe you were here more than 2 years easily. 2, it has a picture of who you are. It has your name. So those are little things that are important to know, so that whatever you're going to be carrying with you are identifications from the United States instead of your own country. Personal responsibilities, just like we've seen in Los Angeles, it's all about calmly doing protests, just like we've seen it all over the United States, no violence. Under this personal responsibility, stay calm, be polite, and do not panic. Remain silent and don't answer any questions. Don't run, don't argue, resist, or obstruct the investigation. If the person is arrested, ask for a lawyer immediately. Don't say anything, sign anything, or make any decisions without a lawyer. You have the right to a phone call. Only discuss your immigration status with your lawyer. Contact your consulate only after speaking with a lawyer. Basic items that are important that we tend to forget when we are in a situation of fear or high stress. There is in the event that any of you as employers get a call from an employee or a concerned family member and they say, my father has been arrested, my son has been arrested, my daughter has been arrested by ICE, how do I find them? There is an ICE website that actually tells you where the person is located once that person has been documented as where they are. Additionally, prior to this, in today's world, after the new administration took over, there used to be an 800 number, which, by the way, is this one, and it still exists. And this particular phone somebody will answer you questions as to where that person is. The current administration has now changed this phone, and now they call it Report a Crime. It's not about assistance now, it's about report a crime. What can you do right now? They say that not having a plan is planning for failure. And one of the examples that, I'll give you the next one. One of the examples that, give me a second to say, prepare yourself and your family in case of arrest. Memorize key phone numbers, family and lawyer. Plan child care or care for dependents if detained. Share your lawyer's number and document locations with trusted family or friends. Keep copies of immigration documents in a safe place and with someone you trust. If in the U.S. for over 2 years, gather proof, bills, etc., that prove that you are here, and let somebody that you trust know where they are. One important element that I like, actually Grace likes it when I share this information or this example. I went to a local restaurant that I love in Santa Rosa, and I was talking to the lady, the Mexican lady that was serving me, and she, by this time, had shared with me that she was there undocumented in the United States, and that she had 2 daughters that were less than 18 years old. They're young girls. And she says, oh, you know, she says, my mother keeps calling me from Mexico. And she says, my daughter, I'm hearing all these news about the immigration, and, you know, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And the young lady says, oh, Mom, she says, you know, I trust in God. Whatever happens will happen. And I'm like, oh, my God. I said, okay. I said, I understand about trusting your God. I said, but listen, you just told me that you have 2 underage daughters. Do you know that if you get arrested and you have not done any planning for your daughters go to the state? Oh my God. They're going to do whatever they want with them, because now you didn't prepare to simply say, I want to leave it to my sister, to my brother, to my mom, to my grandma, or for that matter, your checking account, the little car that you own. Maybe you have a taco truck that you own or a small business. Nothing has been done. Where does that all go? Lost. One of the last slides is who can help. In the event that you're getting phone calls from anyone in California or anyone in the nation, there is a website that is also here, right here, and those organizations have already been vetted. All of the nonprofit organizations out there are listed here. All you need to do is enter your zip code, and they will be able to find who can help them near their city. For example, if we enter a zip code for now, rapid response will come up, VITAS will come up, and also Grace's API also will come up. So it's very important to know that anyone can find this assistance clearly on the internet easily for them. You have rights, know your rights, use your rights.
All right, can everyone hear me if I don't hold the microphone? Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Gorney. I'm an immigration attorney from VITAS. We are local here to Petaluma. We also have offices in Santa Rosa, Vallejo, and at the junior colleges. So if you know anyone who's a student there and they might have questions about immigration or their family, that's a really great free resource for students. We do everything at VITAS immigration. So citizenship applications, DACA, visas, family petitions, and then what I do is actually removal defense. So if somebody is an immigrant in deportation or removal proceedings, I am the attorney that represents them in court. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about has already been discussed, but it's so important. So we're going to repeat it over and over again. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to let Rapid Response talk about more in depth. So don't worry if I don't expand really on the yellow cards or the red cards. You're going to hear about it more in a minute. So as an employer, everyone should be marking areas of their business. It should be very clearly indicated with signage what is considered a private area, a staff-only area, or what is a place that customers should feel free to walk into. If customers feel free to walk into an area of your business, so does ICE. So if you have a break room or a place where you keep equipment or anything that would just be employees only, it should be marked so. This is a really small thing that can go a long way, because basically, you know, it depends on your business where ICE can go, but if it's not clearly indicated, there's always that argument that they didn't need a warrant to enter where they entered and where they were searching. So I always say a little signage goes a long way. Even if you share your business space with other businesses, that's also really important to mark what should be considered your business space versus the neighbor business, because maybe ICE has a warrant to search one business but not yours. You really want to make that signage be clear where exactly they're entering and where they need to be stopping. We mentioned I-9 audits before. That doesn't necessarily need an immigration attorney. It's a very specific type of legal counsel you'll need as an employer. So I recommend you already have an I-9 attorney on retainer in the event that you ever get an audit. Like Kirk was saying, they happen pretty quickly once you get a subpoena. So that's a pretty quick turnaround to have to find an attorney, hire an attorney, and then respond. So you should be using this time now to have legal counsel on hand. Hopefully you never need them, but just know that in the event of an I-9 audit, it's a quick turnaround. So we recommend that you plan now in the event that you get audited. Remember, it's very similar to like an IRS audit. You're gonna lean on your professionals. So don't feel the need when you get a subpoena to respond as fast as you can to make it go away. You wanna make sure you're responding correctly. So trust a legal professional for that. At VITAS and other organizations, we're doing a lot of outreach specifically at local businesses. So if you want us to come and speak directly with your employees, we are happy to do that. If you want us to come and speak with your management and your staff and discuss your business's preparedness plan, we're happy to do that as well. Doing that makes your employees feel very seen and supported. So it doesn't even have to be a formal thing. We all speak Spanish at our office. We can just come and do like a coffee and donut session with your employees. I've had some employers do that since the election, and I really think it makes employees feel like their employers care about them. Remember, not everyone who's worried about immigration right now is undocumented. Maybe they have a mixed status family. So maybe someone at home is undocumented and they're worried about an I-9 audit because maybe their address might get leaked in an I-9 audit. Maybe someone's status is changing and it's taking a long time to be approved. So not everyone who's going to come and say they're concerned about immigration is undocumented. And so just be mindful that people have different immigration statuses and it's very nuanced. And if they're referred to a qualified organization, it goes a long way. We've been talking a lot about these red cards. To print more of them, you go to ilrc.org and you can download them. One thing is, a lot of people say, oh, take a picture of the red card, have it on your phone. I don't like that. I like having a physical copy of the red card. The red card applies to US citizens, non-citizens, undocumented folks, everyone in between. So the more people that we are all carrying the red card, the less of a stigma will be attached to it. And then also, I don't like it on your phone because when you open up your phone to get the picture, that invites them to see the rest of your phone. So I like to say, keep the red card in your wallet. When you're presenting your license at a traffic stop, give them the red card. Keep the red card in your car. But the more we all have the red card, the more it's just a reminder to all types of law enforcement that we all know we have rights that we're asserting. And if you also want to get involved right now, we ask that you volunteer with your local rapid response network. We're going to talk about that more in a bit. And that's the information that you're going to see here on the yellow cards. So the ILRC, they just came up with these new solidarity signs. So you can go to this website up here to download. There's a few different options. So that's also just a little bit of signage that you could put up, and that's really going to show, again, where ICE could enter with or without a warrant. And also it's just a really great way for your employees, documented or undocumented, to feel supported by their employer. These are like fresh off the presses as of this weekend, I think. Here's just, there was a whole article in the New York Times about how much the red cards are working. I forget how many million have been distributed since they first came out, but it's just a reminder, like we were saying, anytime anyone has any sort of interaction with law enforcement, we all get nervous. We get a little chatty, right? We were saying before that you have the right to remain silent. That also means in the workplace, if ICE is there, they're talking with workers, and ICE says, if you were not born in the United States, go over here. You have the right to remain still, because moving is the same as saying, I was not born in the United States. So let your employees know what all this means. But again, we're happy to come and give a specific training on it because it's very nuanced and it's so easy to forget all this in the heat of the moment. So we've talked about this a little bit. There's two types of warrants. An administrative warrant is issued by an ICE agent. So that's why it's really important to look at what the warrant is. And then a judicial warrant is signed by a judge and does allow them to enter your property. So you have to see the warrant or else you wouldn't know. You have the right to review the warrant, and maybe your receptionist gets served with a warrant. That's why it's important to have training so that your reception or whoever would be up front would know to say, you know, I need to review this with management, or we know the proper protocols of who's going to review this warrant so that they don't have to be the experts up front. So if it's an ICE warrant, that means they're looking for a specific person. So like Jose was saying, it's very specific. If they ask you about this person, you've never heard that name, they don't work there, that's it. That's the end of the story. If they say to you, oh, well, do you mind if we come in and take a look around and see if we can find them? No, that they do not have the authority to enter a private space and search for that person. So it's very important to look at the actual name on the warrant. The judicial warrant is going to be issued by a judge, and that's going to allow them to enter a private space. So, but again, you need to look at the language. Maybe the judicial warrant says they have the right to enter 101 South Point, but you're 102. So you look and you say, oh, that's not this address. They can't just say, oh, yeah, we meant 101. No, then they need to go get a new warrant. So that's why it's so important when they come, they're waving around a piece of paper, to be calm, take the time to look at it, and make sure you're upholding them to what they have permission to view or not view. These are some samples. I know they're super blurry, but I know Jose had some, so that will be better when we send them around. So these are just two different examples. The one that's going to be from ICE is going to be from Department of Homeland Security. So remember, DHS and ICE are the same. And this says it's a warrant to arrest an alien. So that is specific to a person. So that is not free reign to enter your business and have them look around and look at records. You know, it's very typical that the owner of the business or the person who's going to be up to speed on all of this isn't necessarily going to be the first point of contact with ICE or law enforcement. Okay, so there are things you should be encouraging all of your employees to do and our community and our neighbors. So everyone should go to this website to find their local rapid response network. I love our rapid response network. It's a great network of advocates who are available 24/7. I recently had a detained client, and his niece called the Rapid Response Network within minutes of him being arrested recently, and I was able to speak with that individual while he was detained in ICE within hours of his arrest, and it really works. It's such a great resource. We should encourage everyone to carry a red card, not just undocumented folks. We don't want people to equate the red card with being undocumented. We want to equate the red card with asserting our constitutional rights that are available to everyone in the United States. And you should encourage your community to attend a Know Your Rights session, especially we're talking about family preparedness. What would happen in the event that one parent or guardian is unexpectedly detained? They should have a plan that's totally separate from immigration planning. So we kind of do separate family preparedness meetings. If you see something like that, share it with your employees. One thing you can do really to help is have all these resources in your break room, right? In a place where an employee feels like if they grab a yellow card or if they grab a flyer for VITAS, people aren't going to see them and think, oh, that person's undocumented. I just saw them grab a yellow card. Have it open in an available space. One, it's going to make them feel like, oh, wow, my employer cares about what is happening right now. And two, it's going to make them feel like they should take those materials, take it home, discuss it with their family, and share it with their community without feeling singled out. So another thing you can do is refer them to trusted legal organizations like VITAS or that website that Jose had shared, because unfortunately too, there's a lot of immigration fraud. There's a lot of attorneys who aren't attorneys but love to give out immigration advice. So you can refer them to a trusted org, and that will save them hours, if not months, of search. Recently, I was in court and I met an 18-year-old construction worker, and he said that his employer was paying for his attorney, and that warmed my heart. So I'm not saying you have to do that, but I'm saying you can refer them to trusted places. And so here's just some resources. You're going to see these coming up over and over again. The ILRC, that's going to be where you can get those solidarity signs. It's going to be where you can get more red cards. You can even download them there. You can order them to be delivered to you. National Immigration Law Center. They have a lot of great resources for employers. I think we have some of their materials hanging up over here. So if you just want to prepare yourself a little bit about I-9 audits or how you can prepare today, they have great resources. CCIJ is going to help if you ever need to find an attorney for a detained individual. And this is the VDOS website and my email. You can always email me. I won't respond right away, but I will eventually.
And thank you.
And now we're going to talk about rapid response, which I think is probably the most important thing.
Yes, Nicole mentioned about rapid response. The rapid response network in the area is North Bay Rapid Response. We call generally RRN. And you have heard from a lawyer, employer, you have heard from a Know Your Rights advocate, and you have heard from a lawyer. Now, what can you do, and what will actually happen to provide support when ICE comes to your premises or to your next door neighbor, or even to your own house? This RRN is a community-led first responder network for Sonoma, Solano, and Napa counties. That means all these 3 counties will use the same phone number. Earlier on, Nicole showed a link, and that goes for the entire California. And because many other counties all over California have their own hotline. And the RRN serves as witness to immigration enforcement action, uphold the rights and dignity of immigrants and our allies, and connect community to network of care. And not only that, but if you are a citizen, you are secure in your immigration status, you can participate in this network, which Linda Evans is going to talk about. Linda is a longtime immigrant advocate. We know her dearly from many meetings I go to. It has to do with advocacy for immigrants. And she volunteered for Migrant Justice in Action. And since 2017, when the numbers started advocating, when its members started advocating for language justice after the Tops fire. And Linda mentioned that she's not representing the RRN. However, she does know a lot about this. Linda.
I actually am representing the Rapid Response Network, but I hope I can answer all your questions if you have any. I work with Migrant Justice in Action, which is also part of the Sonoma County Sanctuary Coalition. And that's part of where I know Grace and other people in this room. I want to really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with you. I feel like our work in that coalition has been to uphold some of the political resolutions that we have been struggling for. So for example, in an ongoing way, we are trying to get the county government, which is one of the largest, if I think maybe the largest employer in the county, to adopt protocols for its employees, training them how to interact if ICE comes to their public areas. Trying to get them also to do signage that will protect their employees, that will give their employees a place to go. So, and we are also advocating with the cities to adopt ordinances that will protect the information of clients for their public services. The county already has a resolution that will prohibit any sharing of information with ICE, but we're trying to get the counties to adopt ordinances that will do the same thing for their public service agencies, as well as providing the employee training that I mentioned before. So I feel like Grace started us out. I don't know how to, oh, here we go. Let's see here. I'm not familiar, but we'll try. So I want to just emphasize that the North Bay Rapid Response Network is a community-led first responder network for Sonoma County, Solano, and Napa. And as you know, that is a big area. So we're trying to get volunteers from all of those counties to join the Rapid Response Network, to take the legal observer training and the dispatcher training, and to volunteer, because it is a community-led effort. And as we know, it's important that we emphasize that we are one community at this point. We will not allow them to divide us. This number is the hotline. Now, if you all don't have that number already in your contacts, please take out your phone, put it in your contacts, but do not call them at this time. It's really important not to, because sometimes people make that mistake and they see a surge of calls after one of the Know Your Rights presentations, which is not what we need. We are really careful about when people call the Rapid Response Network, and I will explain what that is. I think that the other thing I want to just emphasize, which Nicole talked about, is that we emphasize poder, not panic. Power, not panic. And that we look at information as being power. And that's why we do Know Your Rights presentations along with Jose and other people in the Sanctuary Coalition. That's why we're here today. That's why feel free to contact Mija, Migrant Justice in Action, at any time with questions, or myself personally. So we appreciate you being here. The important thing about this number is that you call it immediately. So as an employer, it's important that you explain to your front desk people, to people that might be serving the public, they need to, if they see ICE activity, they need to call the Rapid Response Network immediately, because that is the point, is rapid response. At this point, some of our phone calls are coming in up to 5 hours late after the ICE activity has happened, after somebody has been detained. And it makes it, depending on the time of day, it may make it more difficult for them to get a lawyer that day and possibly get bail, at least let their family know where they are. So calling immediately is really important. Timing is critical. I also want to emphasize that when people call this number, there may be up to 1 minute of waiting. Patience is really important, because there is an intricate system that feeds the hotline number to individual cell phones, to individual organizations who are covering the hotline, and that process may take some time, from 30 to 50 seconds. So we urge people to have patience when they're calling also. Now, I think this is really important, because here we have a mix of people who have citizenship, who do not. We have white people like myself and people of color. I want to emphasize that the reason that I personally am involved and that Mija is involved in the Sanctuary Coalition is because we believe this is one community, and we don't want anybody to divide us. A long time ago, in Trump's first administration, the county and the city adopted indivisible resolutions because they were paranoid about calling themselves a sanctuary county or city. Now we see that things have gotten so bad that they have actually stepped up and joined a lawsuit that will challenge the Trump administration's listing of us and taking away funding from other sanctuary jurisdictions. So we think it's really important that we have that declaration, that the ordinances pass, and I really urge all of you to also be advocates for in county and city government so that these ordinances will pass, so that city and county employees will be protected also. I think the other thing I want to just say as a white person is that too often immigration detention and the workplace raids are not identified as racist white supremacy. And the fact is that I view those as racial profiling. We fought for years to have laws against racial profiling and racism in this country, and I think it's very important that we recognize that there is no subtext for what they're doing. That's what they're doing. So the structure. We work in 3 counties. We have a steering committee that has representation from all of the counties and all of the aspects of our work. And that is the governing body, the place that we handle problems in any kind of technology and how to improve our response times, et cetera. So the steering committee is very important and has really been active and is volunteer. In all of these counties, we have 3 different elements: dispatchers, legal observer trainers, and legal observers. I urge all of you, and many of you may already be legal observers. It's an excellent training. It really is informative about all kinds of aspects of immigrant rights, and we welcome people to join that network in whatever capacity they can. So the legal observer trainers obviously are people who have been trained and are giving trainings, because we're trying to get as many people trained as possible. Dispatchers are bilingual in English and Spanish at this point. What we're hoping for, and we hope AAPIC will help us, is to develop a network of people that speak other languages, so if the dispatcher gets a call from someone that speaks Tagalog, they will be able to call somebody perhaps in this room who will be able to translate and take that call. So we're looking forward to creating a really robust legal language justice network for the Rapid Response Network. The other element that Sonoma County has is accompaniment teams. And unfortunately, as we have seen in the last couple days, there is a move by ICE to actually arrest people at the courthouse or require them to come down to the courthouse to have a ankle bracelet put on or checked, and then taking them and deporting them. This is the kind of subterfuge that leads to a complete distrust of our immigrant community in any of the government institutions that we have going. So, you know, it's really very, very detrimental, and accompanying people to those court dates is important because they may not come back. They might be detained right there. And having somebody in the court might deter that from happening, but also it will definitely enable that person to get in touch with their family. So court accompaniment has been really important, and we have also a specialized court accompaniment team called the Queer Accompaniment Team for gay, lesbian, and bisexual people needing extra emotional support facing deportation. So how does this work? We have over here the caller. They may be in differing levels of distress, and that's what I'm trying to show you through this slide. This is how it works. If someone calls with a non-urgent call, then they will, and that happens all the time, you know, because we're an immigrant rights organization and people need help. So they may just be calling for services of some kind. And the dispatchers, at that point, will direct them to community resources, whether it's through telephone calls, directing them to websites, whatever that might be. If it is an urgent call, they would be the dispatcher would fill out an intake form to connect with rapid response legal support. That would be, for example, if somebody was already detained. And everyone will be connected into the network of people who are served by the rapid response network and, you know, given access to as many community resources as we can provide. If there's an emergency, if ICE is spotted on the street, or if somebody is in their house and they need that somebody's there on the porch, ICE is there, then they call the rapid response network, and immediately the legal observers are activated. What happens is that, and this just happened in Sebastopol 2 times in one morning last week, there was a very suspicious van that was parked on a residential street near people who were undocumented in a community. And it had all of its, all the windows were blacked out, or whatever they call that, tinted, and it was just parked there. And people noticed it. Actually, a school counselor noticed it and called it into the hotline. They considered it urgent and perhaps an emergency developing, so they activated the legal response network, and people went out there and they poked around and looked around and walked around the block, and the van eventually drove off. The second time, same day, same area, they came back, and the legal observers again were mobilized, and they took pictures of the van, and they just left immediately. So I think that it's very important for us to recognize what the job of the legal observers is to document, and possibly that will deter. You know, it's not to get in the way, it's not to be obstacles, but when I went to the legal observer training, we were trained that there were 3 different ways that documentation would happen: through taking photos, through writing notes, and through someone who is designated in that role going up to the ICE agent and finding out if they have a warrant that is a proper warrant. And legal observers are trained in knowing the difference. So I think that that training and the fact that we can actually mobilize community people to support each other actually can make a difference. You know, who knows? I hope that our continued organizing here in Sonoma County, we're very, very strong. The coalition, the Sanctuary Coalition, is very strong. I hope that that will deter ICE, and it may. If we're prepared enough, we may have success in that. So, how can you join? Number 1, you can always talk to me. Get trained as a legal observer. If you're bilingual, we would love to have you be a dispatcher. We really need people. We have 21 dispatchers right now, and we need 40. And they must go through a legal observer training first. Again, we will be having more court accompaniment trainings coming up if you want to participate in that. And again, if you do speak another language, please contact me or Gina. Her contact information will be coming up. So I will be sending this out, so you don't have to try to do the QR code as if it were a TV. And that's for the Rapid Response Network and for MIJA, Migrant Justice in Action. We hope you'll join, because we know policy change is unfortunately the only way to make change permanent. And then we see what happens to that too. Well, know your rights cards. I think they're very clear. The most important thing is to call immediately. The library, the public library, for example, has a policy in place where if ICE comes, they have, I don't know who it was that was asking the question of how long do they have. The library is trying to delay delay ICE until the Rapid Response Network comes. So they're just, they have to get their supervisor, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's crucial that you as employers and also your employees are trained in how to use the red and yellow cards. Because a lot of people are just handing out the cards and not explaining that you have to put this you have to give this to them one way or the other, under the door, not opening the door. And again, here will be links. This also is a really good link from the National Employment Law Center. And these are the signs that are printed out on the wall. These with the rainbow are the ones that were created by the Sonoma County Sanctuary Coalition. And then these are the ones that Nicole was talking about in her at the end of her presentation, hot off the presses or whatever. So these also, the thing about these is that on one side, they say everybody welcome except ICE, as if it were on a window. On the inside is know your rights information. So if you're a restaurant, you have one side out, everybody welcome except ICE. On the inside, your customers can actually be reading what their rights are. Really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you, Linda. I hope you are all inspired. One thing I want to mention is that do not panic. Have knowledge, have power. Do not panic. I think you probably see a lot of Facebook pages and other posts saying that, oh, ICE is here, here, and there. And for our local area, the best way is to go to Facebook page, but look up North Bay Rapid Response Network page, and they will tell you if there is any actual raid going on. So do not pass on rumor if it is not, you are not the eyewitness to it. Don't create panic. And that being said, I would like to invite our last speaker, Lieutenant Silverio, he calls himself Seuss, Rivera, is a seasoned law enforcement professional with over 18 years of service committed to public safety, community engagement, and professional excellence. He has been promoted to Lieutenant 2024.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Grace. So I really appreciate the invitation. My objective in attending and speaking with this important group here is to ideally demystify some of what law enforcement does and what we don't do, and hopefully also allay some fears about what our roles are in regards to immigration enforcement, which is no role. We do not do immigration enforcement. We never have, as long as I've been here for 18 years. So presentation's over. No, just kidding. It's not. So ideally, what we're going to go over as we get started, I know everybody's talked about constitutional law. And of course, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to talk to you about constitutional law because, as Jose mentioned and Nicole mentioned, all of our rights come from the Constitution of the United States. That's the large umbrella that we all operate under as law enforcement. ICE, a federal law enforcement agency, also operates under that same umbrella if they're operating lawfully. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And ideally, if questions come up, please ask as I'm going through. I generally talk pretty fast through this stuff because I've been doing it 18 years. So I assume that everybody will understand it, and that's not necessarily always the case. So please slow me down if I'm going too fast. and I'm saying something that isn't making sense to you. So as we go through, what we're going to talk about is our Petaluma Police Department policies. All our policies are rooted within, you guessed it, the U.S. Constitution, the Constitution of the State of California, as well as the city charter. So the Constitution lays the framework, state constitution then refines that, and then county refines that even more, and then the city of Petaluma refines it even more. So what we do, I say all that to just simply point out that what we do in Petaluma may be done in Santa Rosa, but it may not be done in Santa Rosa. That may be something that I mentioned in regards to policies may be specific to just Petaluma. So it's important to, policies for police departments are available online, and you can basically go at any police department within the state of California. And most of us in California use Lexipol, which is usually the framework, and then we refine that policy as we want it per our agency. So within that, we are basically guided by the Fourth Amendment, which is it's protection against search and seizure by government, which is us. So it doesn't give us power, it takes power away from us and gives it to the people. The Fifth Amendment, right to not self-incriminate, as in answer a question hey, please, if you're a non-citizen, go ahead and stand over on this side. The Fifth Amendment says you do not have to answer that. So you don't have to answer that verbally. You also don't have to make any move in the negative or in the positive that would identify what that answer is. Sixth Amendment due process, that specifically addresses when a person is arrested or detained. It starts at detention, can move through arrest, and it can also go through the judicial process, meaning the court process, trials, preliminary hearings, all that. 14th Amendment, it guides every governmental agent within the country that we have to provide services and equal protection under the law for anyone in the United States, with a very small exception of an enemy combatant, which is basically a terrorist. If somebody is identified as a terrorist, 14th Amendment may or may not apply in very specific regards. But to get that designation is not done at the city of Petaluma. It's not done in California. It's done at the federal level, if that makes sense. So in addition to all of that, if that wasn't enough, California has the Values Act, SB 54. That's specific to California, and it basically tells us as law enforcement what we can and cannot do in regards to immigration enforcement. Somebody spoke earlier about seeking legislation and creating legislation to essentially control power in law enforcement. That's already done in California. There's no need for additional controls in that, and we'll talk a little bit about that in regards to what we can do in as far as law enforcement officers are concerned, and what we are not allowed to do. Meaning, if we do engage in those sort of behaviors and activities, it's a crime and we can be arrested. The Truth Act is also very similar act, in the Trust Act. Have any of you guys ever heard of any of these laws, assembly bills? So we'll go through, and hopefully you're going to get a lot of good information out of this. So our policy, I'm not going to just read it to you, but in regards to immigration violations, we don't do it. That's a really long paragraph to say we don't do immigration enforcement. The reason that we don't do immigration enforcement is that our policing, community policing approach is also grounded in the procedural justice. Anybody heard of procedural justice? So it basically means that law enforcement should be giving voice to the community, should be behaving in a way that is neutral, unbiased, that we respect community members, and that we establish ourselves as trustworthy. Nobody wants to call the police if they can't be trusted. That seems pretty reasonable and really basic, but these are the ideas that our policies are rooted in. So obviously we want to do all of that so we can encourage reporting, in cooperation in the investigation of criminal activity. That's what we do. Our bread and butter is investigating crime and arresting criminals and keeping the community safe. That is exactly all we do. That's all we've done. But a lot of folks don't necessarily understand that. And so there's some fear about law enforcement behaving in a way that we're not just investigating crime. We're not just seeking criminals, that we're out there seeking undocumented people, and that's just not the case. So immigration inquiries, which are prohibited. So the government code, that's a state government code. It basically tells us in no unclear terms, officers shall not inquire into an individual's immigration status for immigration enforcement purposes, meaning we do not have the authority to ask anyone any questions about their immigration status. There is one component of that is where we are allowed to ask, is if we place a person under arrest and we transport them, to Sonoma County Jail or any other jail, but generally it's Sonoma County. At that point, if we believe that person to have been born anywhere outside of the United States, wherever that person was born, their country or consulate has a legal right to be notified that that person has been detained or is arrested in the United States. They can also decline that, but we do have to ask that. But again, that person could also decline and say, hey, you know what? I don't want to answer that question. Or I am, in fact, not a U.S. citizen, but I don't want you to contact Mexico and let them know that I'm in custody in America. That makes sense? California law, the law enforcement telecommunications systems also makes it illegal for us to use any information from CLETS, meaning it's basically a criminal telecommunication service that's available for law enforcement only. We can't use any of that information for immigration purposes. That is strictly criminal investigative work. Federal requests for assistance. This one usually it comes up a lot. If you look at that comes from the California Values Act. It's a government code, and it basically says that our absent and urgent issue or officer safety issue, local law enforcement cannot assist immigration, ICE, Homeland Security. It's sort of an unwieldy beast when we say Homeland Security. There's a lot of different agencies within that. You have Customs, Border Patrol, and Immigration within basically that big machine. So we're limited in aiding any of those organizations if their function is immigration enforcement. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. This is pretty basic stuff because it's admittedly, Nicole could probably speak a lot more intelligently to this than I could. But basically what it does is there's certain rights are triggered if an undocumented person is a victim of a listed enumerated crimes, and how those services are then sought. They contact an attorney. The attorney generally or the person contacts the police department, requests a copy of the report, and then in our case in Petaluma, that investigation generally is handled by our investigations unit. So that paperwork goes through our investigations unit, and then once it's substantiated that person in fact was a victim of a qualifying crime, some of these rights come into play. California Values Act, SB 54, again, really another way of saying we can't work with immigration. But very clear. We can't, basically says we can't work with immigration. We can't use them for really anything. We can't give them space. within our buildings, and sometimes used to be more common probably 5-6 years ago, where local law enforcement officers were cross-trained to work in state task forces. We can't operate or work within those task forces if the main function of that task force is immigration enforcement. So additional restrictions that come into play, we're not allowed to be supervised by federal agencies or deputized for any immigration enforcement. Obviously, to do that would undermine the relationship and trust that we've built with our communities. So that's one of the main reasons that's come into play. Immigration authorities, we can't use them for interpreting, have them interpret for us, which is generally not an issue. But in the past, they have generally when they come into our city, which is not very often. But when they do, they are a law enforcement agency. They will call our dispatch center and let us know that they have some activity in the city. They don't tell us necessarily what their business is, but it is to let us know, basically for officer safety, that they're in the city, how many agents they have, whether they're armed, how many vehicles they have, whether their vehicles are marked or not, so that we essentially have an awareness that we have other law enforcement agents within our city. And that's a standard that we basically follow when we as Petaluma law enforcement go to Santa Rosa, to Novato, or any other city. That's a general standard of practices that we would then advise that agency who has jurisdiction within that area that we're there, our basic information of why we're there, how long we plan to be there, what kind of resources we have there, and when we plan to be out of their jurisdiction. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So the other component, entering into contract with federal government to house or detain. We don't house or detain, but that could apply to Sonoma County Jail, which means that they're not allowed to house federal. So there's a federal arm of law enforcement, which sounds a little strange to say, but it's true. And then we have a state level, CHP for California, and then we have a county level, sheriff's office, that is responsible for running a jail, and also, actually, they don't have to run a patrol division. Bless you. Bless you. But they do, and so they're also responsible for unincorporated areas within the county. And then we have municipalities, which we're in one right now. Petaluma Police Department then trains and hires basically our work or police force. So all of that being said, from the federal law enforcement arm on down, we all operate under the constitutional law. That's where we get our authority. That's also where our authority is pulled back. The same way that our authority is pulled back in regards to the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, the requirement of equal protection under the law, that applies to every law enforcement, I would say, officer in the country, regardless of federal, state, county, or local. As a law enforcement officer, a door being simply opened is not an invitation in. I'm still going to need some legal basis for making entry. I can seek consent, meaning, hey, can I come in? We got a call that there's a fight inside the house. No, you can't. Okay. Now, at that point, is the report that I got indicative of somebody potentially being injured and needing medical help inside the home? If yes, go ahead and move aside, Jose. I'm going in. That's because I have the legal standard for that. Now, I can't go in there and just walk around because I want to, but if I believe, based on the information I have at that time, that somebody needs assistance inside or is destroying evidence in the back, a couple of different things that could happen, then that would empower me to take additional steps. But if I'm just making contact, I knock on the door, somebody opens, that doesn't mean I can come in, provided there isn't additional legal justification for that. The law is really, really murky in a lot of ways. I'm sure Nicole can speak to that. So a lot of very specific requirements. Exigency is one. If an officer can establish exigency, then they're not only should they act, they probably need to act if they're going to actually be effective and save a life or stop somebody else from getting hurt. Does that make sense? So this is pretty much, I'm not going to bore you with the ongoing participation in joint law enforcement task forces. Basically, we can't be any part of a federal or state agency task force if their specific mission is to enforce immigration violations. Does that make sense? Yeah. Trust Act, really again, it prevents local law enforcement from detaining non-citizens. This is again in a custodial setting, meaning that Sheriff Ingram can, I've actually spoken to him and heard him talk about this, but there's very specific, he's been very good at defining the terms of his cooperation with immigration enforcement, which is pretty narrow. I know that in the past, I worked in the jail in the late 99s, early 2000s, and the laws were completely different. And the sheriff's office at that time worked with immigration quite regularly. Their numbers have gone down significantly. They have a predicate list of violations that they will, if in fact someone comes in and is in custody, they may contact immigration for that violator. And that's generally something that you can also go onto the sheriff's office website, and it'll actually list what those violations are. Transparent review of unjust transfers, really it's again, it addresses custodial settings and really identifies and outlines how sheriff's offices can hold people in their custody in regards to immigration violations. We've talked about the red card, so I'm not necessarily going to beat this dead horse. The only thing I would say in regards to law enforcement is I would ask of you as you're talking to folks that obviously need this information. I'm an immigrant myself. I came here as an early teenager, having never attended school anywhere in very rural Mexico. At one point, not very long ago, I had the same fears. I experienced the same fears that a lot of our community now is feeling. And I'm not in a position to allay any of those fears because I am not, and my organization and law enforcement in general in the state of California is not responsible for those conditions. And I'm not saying that to really absolve ourselves of any sort of guilt over it. I simply say that so that I hope that you take it back and talk with your folks that you're talking to, your friends, your family, your employees, and let them know that law enforcement in California can be trusted to support them and to advocate for them. They can also count on us holding them accountable if they violate the law. That is our job. That there is no excuse for any of that, but it's a clear delineation about right and wrong. We enforce the law. We want to maintain public safety and law and order, not manage immigration violations. Yeah, questions? Yes. it's important to answer, I think there were several questions there. We cannot trump any other law enforcement, local, state, or federal. If they have a warrant for someone's arrest, then that person is likely going to be arrested. Probably that day, maybe next day, maybe next week, maybe next month, but law enforcement in the US is very good. And I'm not just saying that because I'm up here, but that's our business. We have good training, we have good technology, and we have great communities that help us. That's why we're successful. So if somebody is being a nuisance, is creating a disturbance in your business, you have every right as a business owner to eject them. Now, if those ICE agents are being a nuisance because they're trying to get access to a work area where they have a warrant with a person named on it, that's probably not something we're going to be able to do and eject them. But if they're just there because they're, walking around and not listening, just looky-loos, which could happen, absolutely, you should call us and we'll go out and figure out, hey, what's your purpose here? The business owner doesn't want you here. You're being disruptive to the business and its operations, and you need to leave. Unless there's something else that they would have to leave. If you believe that immigration, ICE is somewhere in the community and you believe them to be legitimate agents, there's no reason to call the Petaluma Police Department. If you don't believe them to be legitimate ICE agents because they don't have any insignias on them, their vehicles are not marked, and it raises some red flags, absolutely call us. Because we will respond, we will identify who's in charge there and examine whatever documents they have and their legal purpose in that area. We can't stop them if that's the question. We don't have the authority to do that, but we do have the authority to respond there and investigate that what they're doing is legitimate. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Well, I hope that everyone found these last 2 hours to be productive. Our speakers are going to stick around for additional questions and answers. But this should conclude our 2 hours today. Thank you very much.
So wait.
Huh?
So I want to say a few things. I just want to say that I'm the president of AAPIC. We put this on today. I want to thank everybody who came to do the work and spoke with us. You are our allies. You are the indivisible people community that we need, and I thank you so much for attending this important seminar today. Did you know that the Asian American Pacific Islander population in Sonoma County is 5% of the population? We are also undocumented. 60% of the population of the AAPI here are immigrants. We're born someplace else. They are silent, they are secret, they hide, and you probably employ them. Thank you so much on behalf of AAPIC for being our allies. Thank you so much for being here today.